and welcome to our youth conference today. My name is Becky Keeley.
My name is Stefan.
Our conference is called Unfiltered, and the aim of it is to help you at home as a young pro-lifer to find your pro-life voice and to feel empowered to become active.
We know that many of you will have been feeling disappointed after the result of the 2018 referendum and maybe thinking to yourself, what's the point of continuing on? But the point of this conference is to say that it's important to be able to share your pro-life views and opinions with your friends, families, whether you're in school, college, young adult work and life, that the right to life is as fundamental today as ever, and we have to continue to be able to share our opinion so that we can save as many babies' lives as possible.
Absolutely. So now we're going to have a look at some of the influencers from across the world and hear how they use different tactics and styles to get their pro-life message out there.
We have got influencers from Canada, such as Laura Klassan, Lila Rose from the US, the Black and White from the UK, and our very own Youth Defence here in Ireland.
I love people who have blue hair, but like after they're born though. No offense. I totally respect and value you as a human being now. But before you were born, it was a completely different story. Just saying, thanks to prenatal genetic testing, we can now off all the people who have blue hair before they ever see the light of day. That's compassion. I literally don't know what that word means. You don't need to say anything. I don't have blue hair, which means I know what's best for people that do have blue hair, which is that they shouldn't be born. Sorry. If we stop all the people who have blue hair from being born, the world will be a little more perfect and a little less colorful. And isn't that what we all want? Can someone look up that word? What was it? Eugenics?
We should dare to have a better view for America and our women by saying we shouldn't believe and have to think that women need abortion and that we have to kill our children to achieve the dreams and the careers and the families that we want. I think we can do better than that as a society. I think women deserve better. I think we should fight at the community level for programs that are positive, that help women if they're single mothers. We should improve the foster care system. We should improve the adoption system so that we can welcome children into this country instead of seeing them as a threat and killing them by the thousands each day.
We decided that we actually just wanted to do that and flip it and actually say, no, this side is appealing and we can actually put out some banging graphics. But not only that, but we have this kind of offense, not defense approach. So we're kind of sick of going as lambs to slaughters, as tiptoeing around and treading on eggshells.
Trying to justify all the time and defend and explain, like, no, like, not anymore.
Not anymore. We need to put up for them, we need to be loud, and we need to say no.
I'm totally pro-choice. It's up to me what happens in my life. I'll decide if I become a doctor or a dancer, a banker or a barista, where I want to live, who I want to date, where I go to college, if I go to college. It's my choice too when it comes to what I want to wear and who I want to listen to. Boots with my ball gown, pink hair, purple hair. My rules for my game. Because it's my life and my choice. But when it comes to abortion, she's not a choice. She's a child.
Wow, what a great message. Weren't all of those clips amazing? So now we're going to delve into some of these tactics in more detail. It's over to you now, Ben.
Well, welcome everybody to the Unfiltered Youth Conference, where we try to talk to some different young pro-life activists and see how they go about getting the pro-life message out there to their audience. So we're joined today by Grace and Eden from Black and White, and it's very good to speak to you today, girls.
Thank you for having us.
No problem at all, excellent. So first of all, one of the first things I noticed when I was looking at your content and your sort of approach to pro-life activism is you're very assertive and unapologetic about it, which I really liked. I thought that was very refreshing, and it's something sort of new. People tend to kind of tiptoe around these issues. So I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about that and what makes your approach different to maybe some other groups.
Kind of exactly what you just said there. It's that kind of unapologetic, bold, sassy tone that we've got running straight through the page. And we think that there's so many amazing pro-life platforms out there, but we decided to start Black and White Issue because we noticed there was a bit of a gap in the market there, that no one was really providing that. Just say it as it is, be explicit, be unapologetic, bold. So really that's why we started it, just to fill that gap in the market, really.
Yeah, definitely. I think diversity of approach in the pro-life movement is really, really important. And I think as well, we live very much in a culture where young people like outrage, and they like to kind of be shocked, and they like that kind of bold approach where people aren't really, hiding what they think, and they're saying it as it is. And that really does catch people's attention. And not only that, but it also inspires, especially young people, to be like, well, actually, the quote is courage calls courage. I can be courageous, I can be bold, I can be outspoken if that's what I want to do. And it just takes, that one person to start doing it for other people to pick up on it and, really start implementing that kind of non-apologetic approach to being pro-life.
Yeah, and just to add in as well, I think there's so many sort of euphemisms going straight through the whole kind of pro-choice, pro-abortion culture that we've got. Nice words like choice, like that's a euphemism. So we decided no more of that. We're just going to say it exactly how it is, no more sugarcoating.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about, were you always this outspoken and brave, or was this something that came to you later in life? Was there a time when you might have been maybe more timid?
That's a really interesting question. I think for me, I've always been very outspoken about my beliefs, not so much so publicly, but when I'm with people in private, or even going out clubbing, I would always have conversations with people and always make my position very clear on what I thought for various issues. So I think I've always been quite, unafraid to say it how it is in black and white terms, but I haven't done that publicly, obviously, until we started the page. And that's when I really thought, well, actually, if I can do this, then other people can do it too. Maybe all they just need is a bit of a push.
Yeah, I would agree with Eden on that as well. I think that maybe when I was a bit younger, I was never really afraid to express my opinion. I was always quite confident in expressing opinions, even if they were completely different from everyone else's. But then I kind of think maybe finding like-minded people like Eden, who are also kind of fearless in that way, really encourages you and bolsters you and helps you to, be even more unapologetic and fearless in what you do.
So basically, we both inspired each other to do the page, and then that's now inspiring people.
And what would you say to maybe a young person who's watching this now, who feels very passionately about the pro-life issue, and they'd love to do something dissimilar to what you guys are doing, or even maybe just in their day-to-day life be more assertive with their friends and family? What would you say to them to get them motivated?
Well, I think it's really important. Not everybody is as bold and as loud as and as unapologetic as we are. And not everybody is comfortable with posting stuff on their social media. But what everybody does have is something that they enjoy doing, something that they're good at, whether that's a hobby, a profession, anything like that. And so what I think is really, really useful to bear in mind is that no matter what you're doing, what state of life you're in, where you are, try and incorporate your personal talents and use that to bring the pro-life message to whatever circle you're in at the moment. I think that's really important. You don't always need to be bold. If you want to be, that's good, and you should. But if you just want to, do it in a small, quiet way and bring the anti-abortion message to whatever you're doing, that's really, really valuable too.
Yeah, I would say that Eden's answer there was kind of on point. I don't really have much to add to that. I think that me and Eden are quite talented in what we do, but people have all different talents. Like she says, music, art, fashion, acting, writing. There's so many different routes that you can go down and incorporate the anti-abortion pro-life message into whatever you do. You don't need to have a social media platform to do that.
Fantastic. And I really appreciate the time. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I'm sure you guys are very busy, but as a last question, what do you think is the future of your movement, and what are you hoping for next? What's the plan?
I think we're going to abolish abortion.
Yeah.
Symbols.
That's it. That's what we're going to do. We're going to take it out. It's going to be gone soon. It's going to be gone. But we need everybody to do it. So everybody watching, get involved, whether it's helping out your local crisis pregnancy centre, supporting people via donations, getting involved with the Life Institute, do whatever you can because this needs to stop now.
Thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate it, and it was great talking to you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Now we're going to talk to a young pro-life student from NUIG, and she is pioneering a new initiative as part of the Life Society that is gaining an awful lot of traction and making a big impact with this video. And her name is Sandra Parda.
Usually the most difficult part of the procedure is extracting the baby's head, which is about the size of a large plum at 20 weeks. The head is grasped and crushed.
So that was a video that was made by Live Action. Sandra, tell us why you decided to use that video on campus.
Because I was actually pro-choice myself, and it was that video which changed my mind. So one day we set up a table at a society day, and there was just a few people coming in and they were asking what we were about, and some of them obviously said that they're pro-choice. Even one person said that they're for abortion up to birth, which was really heartbreaking, and they just wouldn't listen. But there was a group of girls who came over, and they said they're pro-choice, but they were just so open to talk, and that's what we really love about people, even pro-choice people, just that they're open to discussion, which is absolutely incredible. And we got talking, and then I showed one of those girls that video, the Dr. Lavatino video, and in an instance you could see just in her face expression how heartbreaking it was to see like what is actually happening. Because I remember when I was pro-choice, like I didn't have a clue what is happening during abortion, what is abortion, that there's another human being involved. And that video is so incredible. And yeah, she watched it and she changed her mind, and on the spot she signed up to our pro-life society.
Oh my goodness, amazing. Well done, well done. Can you tell us a bit more about other reactions that you might have got from the video?
Yeah, so a lot of people actually changed their minds. We had a person who was on the fence and who said that they're going to think about it, because like you can see the video and you can change your mind on the spot, but you can also just go back home and do your own research. I had one girl who, I don't know if she had abortion or not, but after she saw that video, she just broke down crying, and it was so heartbreaking. But as pro-life people, we just need to be so understandable that they might not be like vicious pro-choice people who know what they're doing.
Okay, excellent, Sandra. So you've described one girl's reaction. Can you tell us a bit about other reactions that you've come across from the viewing of the video on campus?
We had people who didn't change their minds, who just watched that video and they were still advocating for abortion, which is completely okay. Like, I think it's a huge shock watching that video for not knowing what do pro-choice people stand up for. But some people, like I had a girl who watched that video and who I had to sit down for like 30 minutes or so and calm her because she cried and she sobbed, and she said that it is just heartbreaking what is happening. And I don't know if she had abortion or not, but I think what pro-life people need to realize is that we really need to be understandable, we need to be compassionate, and we cannot shame people who had abortions who are pro-choice, because I don't think they understand what they're standing up for. And
Absolutely,
yeah.
they've been misguided and misled.
Yeah, of course, and it's our duty as pro-life people to shine a light on the pro-life issue.
Excellent. Well done on all the work that you're doing. Tell me, are you talking to students on other campuses about maybe bringing the video there?
Well, that's the hope anyway, because after the lockdown happened, we were obviously locked out from the colleges, so we don't know what's going to happen, but I would personally love to do that. It's just it makes such a huge difference just showing that video and talking to people afterwards. And yeah, we're supposed to go and change people's hearts and minds, but we can only do that individually, talking to people, giving our time to them and actually convincing them that we're on the right side.
Amazing. And of course people will be able to relate to you as well, coming from being pro-choice yourself, not knowing the reality of abortion, seeing the video, and now you're using that exact video. Is it the exact same video?
Yes.
That you're using to change the hearts and minds of other students? So that's amazing work. Thank you very much for coming in.
So another young woman who is having a massive impact on media is the one and only Lucy Kelly. We're about to watch a clip of her on the Stephen Nolan show, and this has been watched hundreds of thousands of times online.
Boycott, Lucy Kelly, you think a boycott would be silly? Why?
Yeah, I disagree with a boycott. I think it's completely mercenary and it's ideological totalitarianism, trying to, they're completely intolerant of anybody else's point of view. The bottom line is, particularly Disney as well, majority of their demographic are young children, yet they are standing against the protection of innocent unborn children in the womb being dismembered, poisoned and suffocated through an abortion. That's the reality of abortion. There is no human right to abortion. There is, however, a human right to life that must be protected. Nobody should have the choice to determine whether someone else lives or dies. If you knew exactly what happened to the unborn child in an abortion, that is what's barbaric. Real healthcare saves both lives, as well as that Emma mentioned survey done. That's 1,000 people out of 1.8 million. That is not the majority of people. It wouldn't be one out of 9 people.
Let Emma reply to you.
So Lucy, being on Stephen Nolan and speaking like you did in such an amazing way, was it difficult to do something like that?
It was quite nerve-wracking, Stephen, obviously being, on camera, on TV, but to be honest, it was over in no time. It was all quite a bit of a blur. It was only 30 seconds or whatever, but I was aware before speaking of what I wanted to say anyway. I obviously thought about it because I'm so aware with media you only get such a short space of time, such a short window, so I wanted to get as many points across as I possibly could, and I suppose acknowledge the euphemisms that were said by the pro-abortion panellists about healthcare and human rights. They love sort of, I suppose, hijacking those terms when we know that we can't talk about human rights without the right to life. You can't talk about healthcare. Abortion ends a human life, kills a baby. So it's the opposite of healthcare. So yeah, I was just aware that I wanted to get as many points across. So it was nerve-wracking, but it was done and dusted quite quickly. So yeah.
So it had a lot of traction online. How do you prepare to be able to do something like that?
The best preparation is definitely street outreach. I volunteer with Youth for Life NI up in the north, and we do outreach pretty much every Saturday in Belfast City Centre, sometimes different towns and cities, and for the summer roadshow we go, we travel around, and sometimes in County Donegal, but yeah, just every week being on the streets, speaking to people about their view, whether it's pro-life or whether it's pro-abortion or whether it's on the fence, hearing people's stories and having debates with them, conversations with them about the issue of abortion. So that's definitely the best preparation, because you hear all the different arguments that people have, or you hear, the stories of people, of whether it's of people who have chose life for their baby, or whether it's maybe fathers who actually lost a baby to abortion, didn't get a say in the life of their child. So it's just having those conversations with people is definitely the best preparation.
And what kind of arguments have you seen utilised in a very efficient manner to kind of sway people towards a pro-life position?
I think it depends on the person. You know, I think it's obviously being compassionate with people as well, listening to their stories, you know, not judging them or, you know, being aggressive or anything. It's being compassionate, listening to their point of view, and then maybe, you know, giving your point. But I think it's a mixture of things. I think it's getting across the humanity of preborn babies. You know, so many people don't know the facts, you know, that, for example, the heart starts beating between 16 and 21 days. By 10 weeks, that, you know, the baby's fully formed, all bodily organs are functioning. So many people do not know the scientific facts. And also, as well as that, you know, as well as the humanity, it's also getting across the barbaric reality. Sometimes you do, obviously not with everyone, but sometimes you do have to tell them, you know, the horrific reality that, you know, in a second trimester abortion, you know, that baby is literally torn limb from limb, their skull crushed, you know, and their body parts sucked through a hose, you know, whatever, you know, that is the reality. As much as some people, you know, don't want to hear it, you obviously don't say it to everybody, or if it's someone young, but, you know, I suppose you weigh up the situation, but it is sometimes getting across the horrific reality, you know, of it.
And so you've done street outreach in city centres, but I also know that you've done it on university campuses.
Yeah.
How has that experience been for you?
It's definitely more difficult on university campus, purely because it's pretty much all, you know, obviously young people. Maybe some professors will, you know, come to the table, but it's normally, you know, young people, sort of our generation, and they're, I suppose, the generation that are being fed so much pro-abortion, you know, euphemisms and everything from the media or different platforms. So I suppose they're the ones that really need their hearts and minds changed. You know, from the referendum down here, that so many of them were young people, that they think it's somehow progressive, that, you know, to be pro-abortion is progressive and compassionate, when really it's the complete opposite. You know, we know that pro-life people want to protect, you know, both mother and baby, and fathers as well, obviously families, just to choose life, to give them all the support they possibly need.
And have you seen students' opinions being changed on campus?
I think it's hard to know, obviously, sometimes when you're there, but even if you give people sometimes food for thought, but I
think sometimes that's as much as you can do.
But sometimes you would like to think at times, you know, you do really see someone really thinking about it, or, you know, sometimes even if you show, sometimes, you know, you show even YouTube clips. Dr. Anthony Levantino's a great one, you know, of his clips where he shows what actually happens in the procedures, you know, in a sort of
animated form.
Yeah, animated form, and they're very effective. So yeah, you do actually see people sometimes really, because they're not bad people. People aren't. Sometimes people just haven't actually thought about it. You know, doesn't affect me, so they don't even think about the abortion, or they are being fed so many lies that you know, it's healthcare, or, you know, it's so yeah, it's just having those conversations. You do genuinely see people even thinking about it, you know.
And you studied law at university up in Belfast, and you're now working as a paralegal. How has that influenced your pro-life position?
Well, I suppose, you know, it is a human rights issue, so obviously the most fundamental human right is the right to life. You know, we can't talk about human rights without the right to life. There is no human right to choose to kill another human being. Sadly, like here, the law has been changed up in the north of Ireland. I suppose it was foisted upon us by, it wasn't a democratic decision, you know, it was from Westminster, it was forced. So I suppose working as a paralegal someday with the aim, you know, whatever career I end up in, whether it is in the law field, that I'll be able to do the pro-life, you know, and be able to change the law, so, you know, try do whatever I can, to play my part, whatever way I can, to try and change the law back. So I suppose the key, you know, for someone who's passionate about the pro-life is, you know, whatever journey you take in life, you know, to try and always have do the pro-life, you know, so help the cause in whatever way you can.
Because I know even in my last job, I wouldn't have brought it up many times, but it's fascinating that the first 3 people that I talked to about abortion, each one of their girlfriends had an abortion. And it was just amazing that it was like the first 3 people, so you just never know who it can affect. And of the second and third, I was talking to them one night. They were best friends, and one of them, it came up somehow, I forget exactly, but he then started mentioning that basically he was on holidays and he got a call from his girlfriend saying that she was pregnant and considering an abortion, and he didn't really know how to react, and he was trying to convince her to not have an abortion. And when he came back from his holiday, her mother had convinced her to have an abortion, and he said it was the worst thing that ever happened to him. And he's like, you're actually the first person that I've even talked about this. And then his best friend like had the opposite reaction, so he didn't want to like consider that as like a human being. So I think, like you're saying, no matter what you're doing, no matter what job we have, or job or no job, we can always have an influence on people.
Exactly. So it's having the conversations with people. You know, even I find it, if I wear my precious feet, you know, it's starting the conversations, starting talking about it, because it's such a taboo issue for so many people. They don't want to talk about it. They sort of have this attitude that, oh, it doesn't affect me, you know, I won't think about it. But it does affect people, so many people, you know, at some stage in their life, you know, they will come across a situation. And even you saying about, from a male perspective, sometimes that's lost with the pro-life, and that they're such an important voice in the pro-life, because there's been men come up to me at outreach. You know, I remember one particular encounter, and he actually got very emotional because his girlfriend had an abortion, I think 10 years previous. But that's a father who's lost his child, and he had no say in the life of his baby. So you know, men are such an important, you know, that's their baby too. So yeah, this what you hear, you know, when you hear people who have actually been affected themselves, it's horrific, you know. It sort of makes it even more important. You know, these are lives behind it. And
it doesn't just affect one person; it can have like
And the awful thing about abortion as well is that, you know, it's not just killing one baby, it's killing all their potential descendants, you know, it's killing generations. You know, you think even of a grandparent, how many people have come from just that one person, you know. So an abortion kills, you know, all their, you know, potential descendants. So it's,
So thank you so much for talking with us today, Lucy. We're now going to talk to Ben and Becky now.
So we're here with Angela Johnson for the Unfiltered Youth Rally, where we're going to try and get as many young people as we can to become more involved with activism. And Angela was very involved on her campus of CIT during the 8th Amendment referendum with the pro-life cause. So we're very pleased to speak to her today about her experience of that and what it was like. Thank you so much for joining us today, Angela.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
So tell me a little bit about your personal background. What got you into the pro-life movement, and why are you so passionate about it?
So firstly, I am brought up in a Catholic family, so I'd say the faith aspect would have a lot of influence on it. But when I was in secondary school as well, I kind of came across a lot of news in terms of how abortions are done and the cruelty of it. And it really kind of made me kind of angry about it. So I wanted to do something about it. And so I kind of started looking more into it and how I can help. So it was towards the end of my secondary school that I kind of got involved in pro-life, kind of learning more about it, educating myself, and also seeing how I could help. So that would be kind of my starting off with the movement. And then I kind of met more people who were pro-life, and they were kind of more calm, and you know, they had their ways of talking to people about it, and to help people understand. And it kind of showed me the compassion aspect of it as well, how you know, sometimes people could genuinely be misled about the whole aspect of abortion, and so how we can kind of help women and men understand about it better. So that would be kind of how I started off with it.
And what was it like being a young person? And I mean, of course, you still are a young person. What's it like, would you say, among your peers when, you know, you bring up the pro-life issue?
It was quite difficult. Most of my friends would be pro-life because we would be coming from that Indian church community. But I think in college it was very difficult. A lot of my friends in college wouldn't be pro-life, and some of them would be actively pro-choice. So in terms of talking to your friends about it, I think that's the most difficult part than like talking to strangers, because you need to understand their stance. You need to be kind and compassionate about it. So it was quite difficult, but I think the friendship aspect comes in where, you know, people are understanding about it and they respect each other's values, and there is a respect there. So that really helped in kind of opening up the conversation. But it did affect a few of my friendships. It did put us off on like a kind of bad stance, and it took its time to recover as well, I'd say. But I think people still respect you know, who you are and why you stand for something specific like this, and they respect the fact that you're deciding to stand out from the normal kind of thinking.
And I mean, it's a very brave thing to do, and fair play to you for doing it. What would you say to somebody who was kind of thinking they wanted to be involved in pro-life activism and maybe they had these feelings privately, but they weren't sure how they would go about it? What would you say to such a person, and what would you recommend they do if they wanted to get started?
I'd say definitely, like, there are some people who are really out there, and I met some others who weren't. They were kind of afraid to kind of go out there as well, but they were helping silently in a way. They were supporting those who were really out there by kind of, you know, giving words of encouragement, or even supporting on social media, kind of like by fundraising or donating. So I'd say, you know, get in touch with someone who could help you, who, when you don't really want to be out there, or you're kind of afraid to really, you know, push this, get in touch with someone who is kind of out there, and they can probably help you maybe kind of open up the discussion more yourself. Or there were a few people even that I've met, they were okay with talking in their own circles, but they didn't really want to go out there onto campus, for example. So, you know, keep that going, and I think when you find someone who is out there, that really gives them encouragement as well. So have that kind of circle of people who are out there, but also who are kind of, you know, standing silently but supporting it as well.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for your time. And last question, is there any kind of activism that you've been involved in on campus that you would recommend to people, life societies and things like that?
So for us, because our student union was very pro-choice, we couldn't really kind of start up something that was specifically pro-life. We couldn't do anything under that banner. So what we did was we got connected to the Christian Union in CIT, and we kind of handed out leaflets and things under their kind of banner. So we branded our information under that. So I'd say if it's difficult for you just to set up something in your university or college, kind of see what's already there in terms of societies or like the chaplaincy, and piggyback on their work. I'd say get you know, have a lot of connections, because we are all working towards the same thing. So it's really important that we stay connected. So kind of help each other out, and use that time and opportunity to promote the work. So yeah, I'd say definitely use kind of opportunities that are already there to you know, talk about the pro-life aspect.
Appreciate it. It was lovely talking to you.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Unfiltered Youth Conference. And Angela was actually working with my co-presenter here, Becky Keeley, on the Save the Eighth campaign down in Munster. So it's very good to speak to you today, Becky.
Thanks a million, Ben. So yeah, myself and Angela did an awful lot of good work for the Save the Eighth campaign. We debated on college campuses, CIT and UCC. We were leafleting, going door to door on the canvas, and we held street outreaches as well in the city centre. So they were a huge benefit because people were meeting us in person and realising that we're just normal old folk too. We dye our hair, we like dogs, we're into the same music. Look at Kevin over there, like he likes tattoos and he's pro-life. So I think when people just realised how real we were, they were more open to hearing the pro-life message, and we did change an awful lot of hearts and minds. But obviously we had an awful lot against us as well, the media being the main one. But we also thought that we had representation in Dáil Éireann, and we didn't. And they let us down. They turned their back on their pro-life stance, and we ended up being all alone as a pro-life campaign. There was a handful of politicians there, of course, and some of them were on here yesterday, but that is why I decided to launch myself into the political arena. So I stood for AIM2 in February just gone. It was my first outing, and I got a really good result. I got 8.5% of first preference votes.
Wow.
So was really delighted with that, and it's something I'm going to chase. And so I'm really excited to see what the future holds.
Well, it really sounds terrific, and it's such an impressive result, especially, as you say, when there's so much institutional bias against people with pro-life views. So I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about what inspired you to stand, and how did you find the courage to do it?
Okay, well, I suppose pro-life people are some of the nicest, generous, kind, loving. They're the most passionate people that you will meet. The work ethic of pro-life people and the drive and motivation that they have is unbelievable. But in my opinion, our biggest challenge is not the media and it's not the opposition. Our biggest challenge is actually to get organised politically. And even Eduardo was on here yesterday from Mexico, and he spoke about how the majority of Mexicans are pro-life, pro-family and pro-marriage, but they have no organisation in the political field. And he spoke to us about how there's a minority there that, because they're politically organised, they're making noise. So that's a red flag for the people in Mexico, that they need to get involved politically, because at the end of the day, we need to get reps elected to Dáil Éireann. They then become legislators and can affect change on that level, and that's exactly what we need. I was at the vigil Friday night in St. Mary's and Pope's Quay, and it is very important to acknowledge all the lives lost, the babies' lives that were lost to abortion since repeal of the 8th Amendment, and to pray for their parents and the families involved. And it's also very important to have the witnesses that we did have yesterday morning. I was at them as well. It's important to march for life, and it's important to protest against abortion. But we could march 50,000 people to the gates of Leinster House tomorrow morning, and it's not going to make a blind bit of notice unless we have people inside Leinster House, in the chamber, where they can represent us and the views and values that we have.
Absolutely. And what do you think then of the last election, where people like yourself obviously had a very good result? All 15 of the most vocal pro-life TDs retained their seats, and many of the most vocal pro-choicers in the Dáil lost their seats. People like Ruth Coppinger, people like Kate O'Connell and so on. And what do you think that says about the future of the pro-life movement politically in this country? Do you think that gives us some hope?
Absolutely, and I think the pro-abortion TDs, like the ones that you've just mentioned, they became so obsessed with getting abortion legalised in Ireland that they forgot to represent people on the bread and butter issues and the queries and concerns that their own constituents had. They obviously weren't answering those questions and representing them, because at the end of the day, people aren't thinking about abortion morning, noon and night, and they got so obsessed with it. I think it just turned people off them, and it was clear to see they lost their seats. With regards to pro-life TDs, being pro-life at the core of all the decisions that you make, whether it's to do with healthcare, education, it's obviously going to be a good decision because you have people's best interests at heart. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then what do you think of the fact that you're obviously a young, intelligent, educated, pro-life woman and you're becoming involved in politics and you're causing a stir? Do you think that groups like the National Women's Council and groups like this that are all pro-women and getting more female representation in society, do you think that they would throw their support behind somebody like you?
No, I doubt it. We're always talking about diversity in this country, but when someone like myself comes along, a young, female, educated woman, aspiring to be a politician, but because I have a pro-life stance and a pro-life voice, I doubt that they would want anything to do with me. So the National Women's Council are all about some women, especially the women who are pro-abortion, unfortunately.
So it's been great to talk to you, but then to wrap it up, what do you think would be your biggest piece of advice to a young person who's maybe watching this and who feels the way you do and says, this is, you know, something I'm very passionate about, I'd love to get involved. What do you think would be your advice to that person?
What I would say to anyone watching at home is that when we had the 8th Amendment, it was in our Constitution, so it was above politics. And by repealing the 8th Amendment, it's been brought down to a level where it can be kicked around, manipulated and annihilated like we have seen. So that's where it's at the moment, and that's where we need to be. So I would encourage any young people watching at home to try and get involved politically, to join societies that are maybe youth wings of pro-life political parties. I would be encouraging people to join OGRA Ain2, of course, when I'm from Ain2 myself. They've just recently set up, and the aim is to have OGRA Ain2 societies in campuses all across Ireland by the end of the year. So that's what I'd be encouraging people to do, to get involved politically. But what I would also like to say is my vision for Ireland, it may actually go beyond my lifetime, right? My vision for Ireland is to fix the cultural brokenness that is there, because abortion is just a symptom of our broken culture. It's just a consequence of it. So we need to start educating people in the schools and in the colleges, and again, getting organised in a political way.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Becky. It was really lovely to talk to you.
Thanks very much, Ben.
So I'm here with Maria Mains, who is part of Youth for Life NI, and we're just going to have a little chat about her work with Youth for Life NI. So Maria, first of all, how did you get involved and what made you want to get involved in the pro-life movement?
So I got involved as a student. I was maybe in my second year of university. Got involved with, the pro-life group at uni, and then, sort of went from there doing Youth for Life activism. Really got involved. It's something that I am passionate about. I think when you research and you find out more about the reality of abortion and the issue itself, it becomes very real, and you do want to do something about it. And it was just sort of, I think sometimes it's taking the leap of faith. Sometimes you're afraid to maybe be out there publicly. It's quite daunting. But I think it goes from strength to strength, and you really you enjoy outreach, and it's a great way to save lives. Yeah.
And so you talked a bit about your work with outreach there for Youth for Life NI. What is a typical day of outreach like for you guys?
So we have a stall which we set up, usually in busy areas, city centres, town centres, all around the north, and again on campus at university as well. So we have a stall, and we set it up with loads of information. So we have resources. We have loads of pro-life literature. We talk to people, we talk to members of the public about the reality of abortion, what abortion involves. Our mission is to build up a culture of life. We have a very broken culture at the minute. So really, our job is to go out into the public square and talk about something which isn't really all the time talked about. It's not really on people's radars. And really we try and target the misinformation surrounding abortion, surrounding, you know, the sort of sound bites you hear about abortion being good for women. You know, we really try to uncover and inform people that abortion is hugely damaging for women, and we talk about the humanity of the unborn baby. We have the images, you know, we do expose the reality of abortion, which a lot of people are shocked when they see that. You know, people do not really, you know, they're not fully educated whatsoever about this, you know, from what they hear in the media, maybe what they're taught at university, different things. So really, you know, we want to become our own media and be out there with the information, getting it into people's hands. We also, you know, a big part of the work is promoting, you know, options for women who are facing crisis pregnancies, who maybe feel alone. We know that most women who choose abortion do so because they don't feel as though they have any other options. So, you know, we promote Stanton Healthcare NI in our work, which is Northern Ireland's only full-time crisis pregnancy centre. And Stanton really offer women, you know, the practical, the emotional support and assistance that they need to be able to choose life. So really, you know, when we're doing outreach, we want, you know, to provide a compassionate face. We want to expose, yes, the reality of abortion for what it is, how brutal abortion is, contrast that, you know, with the beautiful, beautiful humanity of the unborn child. But we also want to be there so people know that they can come to the pro-life community if they're facing an unplanned pregnancy, if they're considering abortion, and the help is there for them. You know, so we're really there, you know, to be active. We're very active on the streets, and again on campuses as well. So, you know, we would sometimes do universities, there are different pro-life groups, and it's especially important, I think, to target young people, to target that sort of 18 to 24 demographic, because as we know, you know, it's this age group that are having abortions. So it's to make them aware that there is help for them, there is support, and to really know that people can come to us, you know, to the pro-life movement and to these centres, and they can save their babies and save mothers and fathers from the pain of abortion.
What kind of reaction do you get on the streets?
I think a lot of people, you know, are quite afraid of maybe doing outreach, putting themselves out there. They're afraid of what people are going to say, what they're going to think. Generally, we do get a really positive, great response from people. I think in Northern Ireland particularly, you know, we have had a law imposed on us, which is the most extreme abortion legislation in Europe. You know, it allows abortion up to birth, it allows abortion on demand for any reason. It is barbaric and it is brutal. And in the north, there isn't, you know, the support. There's no public demand on the ground for abortion or for the change that has been introduced. You know, 79% of people who responded to the NIO's public consultation rejected outright any change to the abortion law. So we have a really great response in the streets. You know, we do see that the majority of people, you know, thousands of people, again, who responded to that consultation, you know, the different petitions, groups like Precious Life have had, you know, have gathered thousands and thousands of signatures. So, you know, from our work, being on the streets, talking to people, you know, day in, day out about this issue, we can see that there is no public demand for abortion in Northern Ireland. And, you know, people, they may have heard certain, you know, sort of talking points, and they maybe throw different arguments at you, you know, pro-abortion arguments. But generally, when you have the conversation with people, you know, there is a consensus about the humanity of the unborn child. You know, when people know, you know, how human that child is, that child deserves protection. So really the response is positive overall. So I would say to anyone who wants to get involved to put themselves out there. You know, we do get a very positive response, and we just want to keep promoting the message and informing people so that more people are pro-life and that more babies are saved.
I know when, because I joined you guys back 3 years ago on a portion of their Youth for Life roadshow, and just like you were saying, I don't think I've ever seen such a positive reaction on the pro-life issue. So it really speaks volumes to not just people's opinion, but also the work that you guys are doing on the streets.
I think when you, and when, you know, you have to take the message to the streets, because, you know, in the media you'll get the perception that, you know, there's a demand for this, and that people, you know, want to see abortion brought into their country, and they absolutely don't. They want to see mothers and babies protected. As we know, in the north, people have voted persistently for pro-life politicians. You know, this debate has been going on for decades, and we've always protected the right to life of unborn children. So, you know, people I think are very frustrated and they're a bit disheartened. You know, they've done a lot of work to oppose this law. They've been out in the streets, they've signed petition after petition, they've written to their politicians, they've lobbied at their offices, and they just feel like their voice isn't being heard, and the media would give you the perception that this law is supported. It's really not. And I just think, you know, we need to keep being vocal and we need to keep the momentum going so we can fully repeal Section 9, which is the abortion legislation which has been imposed.
And so for anyone who's maybe looking at Unfiltered today or in the coming days, and they kind of resonate with what you're saying, but they haven't been proactive in the pro-life movement before, how can they get in contact with you guys, or tell us?
So I would, you know, just say to anyone who's, you know, who's watching this and who maybe, you know, wants to get involved in pro-life, sees, you know, what's happening, all these babies being killed, this injustice of abortion is going on day in and day out, and they maybe feel powerless, you know, to stop this. You know, no action is too small. You know, I think great advice for people is to keep informed. You know, you don't have to be the #1 debater on this issue. You don't have to know everything. But, you know, it's sort of keeping informed, you know, on social media, on different things, getting the best information you can, following pages like Youth for Life, like Precious Life, the Rally for Life, you know, being informed, having that information so that you're confident and that you can respond to arguments and opposition. You know, it's not, you don't have to be a professional, you know, and I think people, you know, don't underestimate the difference that you can make by handing out a leaflet. You may never know the impact of that. So I would just say to people to get involved in any small way they can. You know, if they want to share things on social media, you know, just speak up about the issue, you know, with your friends, with your family. Know, you know, with your friends, if you're young, that if they're ever facing a crisis pregnancy, if they're ever in that position and they, you know, feel abortion is their only option, that you're someone that they can go to, and, you know, you're compassionate and, you know, you come across, you know, you want to help them and you want to be able to provide them with the support and that they know the reality of abortion. So, you know, I would just say to people to get involved. Don't be afraid of what people think. You will be surprised by just how many people out there are pro-life and support you. And I think just always know that the truth is on your side, that this is, you know, this is the greatest human rights injustice we're facing, and you can be a part of ending this. And you can save babies' lives. Many babies have been saved, as I said, through handing out leaflets, through having these conversations, through directing people to crisis pregnancy centres like Stanton. So I would just say to people, you know, stay informed and, you know, just throw yourself into it. Don't be afraid, just go for it. And it's incredibly rewarding. So we're on Youth for Life. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. So yeah.
So thanks so much for being here with us at the Unfiltered event, Maria. Such powerful words. We're now going to hear from Emmett Dooley, who's going to talk about communicating the pro-life message.
Hi everyone at the Rally for Life. My name is Emmett Dooley. I'm the Director of Education Outreach with SPUC Scotland, and today I'm going to give you a wee chat now on laying a foundation for that good conversation. But look, we're going to Rally for Life, have we got everything ready? Is it the right t-shirt? I like it, but it's not quite right. Now, yeah, it's getting there. Yeah, I like that. Because every human life does matter, from conception to death. But I don't know, I'm still not feeling it. Let's try again. Now, that's much better. Hey, come on, the faithful county. I must say, I don't get a chance to wear this Offaly jersey that much over here in Scotland, and I'm sure it's the only time I would have seen Offaly jersey this summer, and that was even before COVID-19. So let's get going on this talk.
So as we're talking about life issues, probably the biggest achievement in my life was getting this woman to say I do 10 years ago, actually, this month. And this is my wife, Lucy. She's a good pro-life woman. So you do find yourself a good pro-life woman. And 3 little monkeys jumping on the bed in our house just now. But we also had baby Daniel, who was miscarried in November 2017. So his life is still celebrating in our house, and we'd never got to see him or hold him, but he played a huge part in our family story. And I say there's one member of the family in heaven, just have to work on getting the rest of us there. No bother at all, no pressure. But anyway, so guys, this is the other my other family. all the young people I manage with SPUC Scotland, we bring them to Washington DC for the March for Life every January, get all fired up and re-educated and renewed. It's amazing, and we've been doing it since 2017. And I'm going to share a few little tips with you now. Like a lot of it comes from Josh Bram, the Equal Rights Institute. Look him up, and also Stephanie Gray. Like two of them, I see, they're bringing it to a whole other level. And since I've been working with them, we've Project Truth under Louise Grant. If you want to know more about that, just contact Louise at Spoke Scotland. And we just have done. It's just been amazing fruit of it. The street outreach armed with this. These new theories and phrases and wordings around the pro-life topics. But look, guys, we're always proposing, not imposing. That's a big one. I do this the whole time in schools on a daily basis, 15 to 16,000 students a year, and it's great fun. Like look at those faces. What a blessing to be able to do this work. But look, guys, here's a few tips to being awesome. Anyway, so look, first one I would say venting. Venting will happen. Keep calm and just let them vent. Because guys, look, it's not easy. As soon as people see you out there in the street or wherever, even in the pub, mention you're pro-life or against abortion or whatever, it's like a red flag to a bull. So look, affirm their feelings. Often like people just blab it all, blah, shout at you and whatever, curse them. And I say, oh, okay, that's okay. So you're obviously pro-choice. That's really interesting. Can I ask you a question? I'd really be interested to hear, where does your choice begin and end? That's often a good one to use. Where does your choice begin and end? Because often it's the easiest thing to say on pro-choice. You've been saying it since you're, 16 years of age in high school. But like, really, have you ever put any thought into that? What choices are we talking about here? That's often good. So find common ground without compromise. People say, oh, look, it's terrible. It's poverty and blah, blah, blah. And, I say, oh, yeah, I'm totally against poverty as well. Like, I don't think, money should be an issue when it comes to crisis pregnancy, that a crisis pregnancy should always be met with generosity and not judgment. So, so it's really, really good to try and to come at it that way, So look, another thing is, guys, look, what we have on our side is we care about everyone. We care about the girl who's in the crisis pregnancy. We care about our unborn child. We care about the physicians who have to assist in abortions. We care about everyone. Care about those girls who already have had abortions. I'm a big friend also with Arch, Abortion Recovery Care Helpline, and that's a fantastic privilege to be able to do that, to do that work and to hear those girls' stories. They were totally sold a lie. They were told abortion was one thing, but what their experience was something very different. And often it's something that they just can't let go. But we've got counselling available, and I know that's available in Ireland, and we are there for everyone, because we care about everyone involved. Look, guys, say some people are hurt, and they're stubborn, and they're bitter, but look, they're never a lost cause. That's a big one, okay? My biggest tip is like listening. So few people are actually really listening to people anymore. So listen to understand and not refute. That's a really good one. So like, you're just understand, don't try to think, I'm going to catch them on this or whatever. No, what are they actually saying? It might be the 12th person today to mention about rape, but what do they mean? They might mean something different, okay? Be present in the moment with that person. Make them feel they're being taken seriously. Like, I often do that. Like, I say, yeah, rape, I think it's the worst thing that can happen to anyone, which it is. I think it's absolutely shocking. And then like if a girl gets pregnant, then pregnancy is not easy, and then so that's 40 weeks of pregnancy, and it's not a walk in the park. Often like morning sickness, all day sickness, and then say when the baby's born, like she has to also decide whether she has to place her child with a loving adoptive family, or have an adoption plan, or is it going to be an open adoption, or what, or is she going to keep her baby? So yes, none of these are. It's not easy, but it's so worthwhile. We know this that say I'm against rape because it's a terrible violence against an innocent human being. I'm also against abortion because it's a terrible violence against an innocent human being. So I like that equal rights. I often like using that, and a lot of the time I say the unborn human or the preborn human. I mention human a lot more than I would a baby. I find it's more fruitful. Listening is the most important tool you have. Okay, there's a time for action and a time for inaction. Okay, and that's like if you're on the street or if you're in a pub or out on the street doing outreach, a girl says to her, she's already had an abortion or she's already had 2 abortions. Well, then you don't get your development chart out and you don't get the fetal models out. That's something that won't go down well. That's very insensitive. So listen to her. Ask her how she's been since her experience, since her whatever word she uses to describe abortion. Just parrot that back to her and just listen to her. And ensure that there is resources available for her. Say in the pro-life movement. Be open-minded, guys. Look, we believe because of a good reason, not because we're just too stubborn to believe in anything else, and that's it. Have a good reason for it. There's evidence of science, reason, and faith is on our side. So I often like to have a thing like, say, a 30-second, reason, answer to that. You should have that. What I use a lot is, I would say, like in school, say, look, I don't judge people by color, or I don't discriminate on humans because of color, because that's racism. I don't discriminate on humans because of their sex, because that's sexism. I don't discriminate on the grounds of disability because I think that's just wrong. I've worked actually 8 years in the area of disabilities, and I loved it and missed that work as well. But I also now don't discriminate against humans because of what size they are, what stage of development they are, and go through the stages, you have a human fetus, human embryo, human fetus. And what do we call a baby that's just born, a newborn? What do we call a 2-year-old, a toddler? What do we call a 13-year-old, a teenager? What do we call a 21-year-old who can't get a job? Unemployed, welcome to real life, instead of living in their mother's basement. So that's just a human adults, human teenager, human toddler, human newborn, human fetus, human embryo. It's the same human, but just a different stage, a different age. Guys, a big thing I always say is like the body language. So when you're out in the street, or even anywhere out in a night out, so be intentional with your body language. Square shoulders is not good. Okay, we're going for a row here. It's like rugby, engage. We don't do that. So square shoulders is bad. Try and get side by side. So like if you're you're having a display there, or whatever, you got to stand side by side. Like we actually are on the same side. If they only knew it, they don't realize it yet, but we are actually on the same side when it comes to a lot of key topics. We might be both against poverty, or anti-poverty. Like there's so much that's going on there. Or anti-discrimination. We think of equal rights for all humans. I think that this is stuff that we will have in common. In their personal space, and like if a person says something daft or they're stupid, just don't let your face show it. It's hard sometimes, but look, guys, we're doing this whole thing. We'll be trained to go out and do street outreach. But some of these people that you're talking about on the street, they might never have discussed abortion seriously since high school, and even at that, I don't have much hope for it. Don't gang up on people. So if there's even say 2 people is enough, like 1 or 2. It's often good, one-on-one, have a chat. But then you might see someone a bit spot bother. It's no harm to come back over and just redirect the conversation. I often like to do that. See someone's getting a bit of a hard time, say, well, okay, it's obvious. So you're obviously pro-choice, so that's really interesting. We're just gauging the public's opinion here, and would really love to know where does your choice begin and end, because I was pro-choice when I was in high school and university, so I just often share that and my journey to becoming actively pro-life. So guys, clarification question, very, very good. So don't assume what someone intends or thinks, because there's something else going on underneath. It could be their sister or their auntie has had an abortion, or their mother has had an abortion. You just don't know, what do you mean, my body, my choice? That's a good one, as I said. Remember, their shields are up and their focus is trying to prevent my argument and just make them feel emotionally safe. It's okay, we're not having a big debate on television in the RT studio, Look, And the big thing I'll just say, just end with, like, you know, people don't care about how much you know. They want to know how much you care, and that is it. Like, even if you have, guys, it's very rare. Like, you can get a person to flip from being pro-choice to pro-life. You know that it does happen. It's great, fantastic. But often that happens later on when they're thinking about it. You've started a process for them, and that's enough. But even if that person had a positive impact, or say, experience with a pro-life person for the first time ever, that you made huge ground there. I would also just say, guys, look, wherever you're at, whatever you're doing, in the small or the big ways, maybe you're just, commenting and liking stuff online, or you're actually out there, in on the streets and being actively and physically, or visibly pro-life. Fantastic. But look, whatever you're doing, I just say thank you and encourage you, because, guys, look, I already know how much you care, because you're here, you're watching this, you're listening to me. You could be doing that now. You could watch Netflix or whatever, you could be out and about, lockdown ended, but you're here because you care, and that's it. Keep it going, and guys, together we shall end abortion. So all I say is, God bless. I hope to see you soon at the next big march.
Hi, I'm Zoe and I'm a member of Youth for Life NI. I'm pro-life because I believe that mothers and babies deserve better than abortion.
Hello, my name's Joel. I'm a student at Queen's University Belfast and I'm doing some work for the Youth for Life NI. The reason I'm pro-life is primarily because upon conception, a unique human being is created with its own unique DNA structural code, which is completely separate from the mother and the father. Now, the problem is one human being cannot have two DNA codes. Therefore, the embryo in the mother cannot be part of the mother's body because it's two separate, completely different DNA codes. Therefore, we know that the embryo, being a member of the human species, has to be its own unique person. That's why I'm pro-life, because we need to protect those rights of those vulnerable human beings.
So now we're going to talk to Ben Shapiro. And Ben has been a very popular voice amongst young people and on an awful lot of issues, including the pro-life issue, of course. His own social media accounts have been gaining an awful lot of traction, gaining hundreds of likes on each of his posts. And he's also now a presenter on Gripped. So Ben, can you tell us what made you want to start getting your voice out there?
I started my page, Ben Shapiro, on Facebook. I started that around the time of the 8th Amendment referendum, as did many people, just because basically I saw a gap in the approaches that we were taking. So, we have all the traditional methods, which are fantastic and vitally important, but as a young person, I'm 23 years old, we like memes, we like, some sort of more youth references and just a different approach, I thought. And so, when you're fighting a culture war, there's no harm in trying a variety of different tactics. So that's what I did a couple of months before the referendum, and I just started putting content out, and I gathered a bit of a following. And then after the referendum, I just continued it, and I branched out and started talking about lots of things that I'm passionate about. And before I knew it, I had thousands of people coming in, flocking to the page. So really, I just view it as an outlet to express views from a youth perspective that maybe you wouldn't have seen. The media only wants to portray young people as this homogenous group who are all in line with, political correctness and abortion and, all of these different social issues, whereas the reality is lots of young people feel the way I do and the way you do. Mm-hmm. And so, there has to be a space where people like us can express ourselves. And so that's what got me involved in it originally.
Excellent, very good. Can you just give us an example of the kind of issues, maybe a list of 4 or 5 different issues that you're commenting on?
Just all the normal bread and butter stuff. Again, the abortion issue, I'd be a religious person myself. I don't think you get a lot of that from young people, at least not in the public eye. You'd expect everybody to be totally secular, totally hedonistic, that kind of thing. I'd be kind of more traditionally minded about a lot of things. So a whole variety of things.
Very
absolutely.
Good. And what kind of demographic have you got following you? Do you know the insights into who's following your page?
Everything. I was at a pro-life thing just yesterday. I was going around doing some photography at a little local event, and I got recognized by a whole load of kids, and then everything up to, like, you know, pensioners and older people and everything in between. So I get recognized probably twice a week while just going around Dublin. So
amazing.
It's a big range, but that's you know, it's true that it's resonating with people of kind of all backgrounds, and that's what we want. You know, that's how you affect change in a society.
Yes, you're making an impact. Very good. For the young people that are watching us at home, what advice would you give to, there may be some like yourself who want to become more active on social media, who want to make more of a stance and an impact like you are, maybe become an influencer someday. What kind of advice would you give them?
I'd say a really big tip that I wish I'd known earlier is that the key to any kind of communication is empathy. So we always start off with the position, where our stance on an issue. So we're pro-life, and so we're thinking about, okay, a baby's right to life and all that kind of thing. But another person, they might be coming at it from a totally different mindset. They might be thinking about, you know, feminism and women's rights and everything like that. So the most effective way to communicate to a person like that is to go to where they are. So say to them things like, well, you know, you're all about women's rights, and so am I. And that's why I'm opposed to the, you know, the gender side, the fact that across the world there are so many unborn baby girls who are killed because of their gender in patriarchal countries, you know, China and India and places like this, and that's a terrible thing that nobody talks about. And where are those little girls' women's rights? So you're going to where they are, the things that they're passionate about and interested in. And you can extrapolate that not just for abortion, but a whole range of issues. And so I think empathy, understanding how is this going to come across to another person who maybe doesn't think the way I do, is a really effective way. And then I guess if you want to get more technical as to the actual ins and outs of social media and how to convey an idea on social media, big, colorful images, you know, big text. If somebody's scrolling through their feed, you want something that's going to catch the eye, not just a gray wall of writing, you know,
Yes.
this kind of thing.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of things you can do. I'd recommend people read up on, like, the Facebook algorithm. It changes every 2 months and all this kind of thing. But it works differently on all social media sites. But that would be a bit of advice I'd give. You know, it's important to understand where other people come from. Otherwise, you're never going to be able to convince them of anything.
Yes, yeah, and you need to meet them where they're at, like you said. Very good. We all know that social media can be very nasty. And sometimes that can get you down. You mightn't even know the person and they're leaving really horrible comments, or you might have put up something that's quite controversial and there could be a massive pushback against you. How do you deal with that?
Well, it's the key, I think, is in what you said, that you might not even know the person, but the fact is they don't know you either. And so I heard somebody once say that you shouldn't don't let compliments go to your head and don't let insults go to your heart. And that's the way I look at it. You know, anybody doing this is going to be inundated with, you know, hate mail daily. But at the end of the day, I've yet to be criticized by somebody who actually knew what I believed. It's always a mischaracterization. They're seeing a very small part of your character. And so I don't take it too seriously, and I don't think anybody else should either. If you have a good, remember to stay anchored in the real world. You know, the fact that if you have friends and family and colleagues that love you, that's really all that matters. What some random, or maybe on the other side of the world, who, you know, you're never going to encounter this person in your life. It kind of doesn't matter what they think. You know, just tell the truth. People who, you know, support you will agree with it, and people who don't won't, and that's the end of it. You know, it doesn't have to go any deeper than that.
So when the hate mail comes in and when the nasty comments are there, you obviously still read them. You have to. Of course, absolutely. You have to scroll over them, but you're not taking any of it to heart.
No, absolutely. Yeah. It's not. They're not criticizing me. They don't know me, and so it's a caricature they have in their head. Like, any pro-lifer knows that the first thing you get from the most diehard repealers is all about, oh, you hate women and this kind of thing. No, none of us hate women. We know this. So it doesn't make it any better, it doesn't make it nice, but you know that whoever they're criticizing, it's not you or me, because that doesn't represent who we are. So that's the advice I'd give to anybody who's maybe worried about it or something, is just don't take it too seriously. It's just the internet at the end of the day. You turn off your phone or your computer and you go downstairs and it's all over, you know. You can
laugh it off. Yeah, thank you. I'm even taking some of that advice on board myself. So thanks very much, Ben.
Thank you so
Cheers.
much, Becky. Really appreciate it. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Unfiltered Youth Conference. We're going to be talking to Jonathan Van Maren here today about his new book, Patriots, that he's after authoring. So it's very good to speak to you today, sir. If you could just maybe, to begin, start off telling us a little bit about your background in the pro-life movement, how you got involved, and what made you want to start doing what you do today.
Yeah, like most people in the pro-life movement, I didn't really make any conscious decision to end up full-time in the pro-life movement. Scott Klusendorf once put it really well. He said, most people don't join the pro-life movement. They feel themselves summoned into it. So for me, it was first year university. One of my professors brought up abortion. He acted like this was a very normal, very good thing. And I realized I didn't know a whole lot about it, even though I grew up in a pro-life home. And so I Googled abortion, and I watched a video of a baby being pulled apart with forceps. And honestly, I can still remember it like it was yesterday, even though that was more than 10 years ago. Sometime thereafter, I went through an abortion clinic dumpster with one of my friends, and I actually saw what it looks like when a tiny baby is pulled apart. And to be honest, it's the sight of those babies that both brought me into the pro-life movement, and it's the reason I've never left, because I think it's so important that we don't look at abortion like this sort of abstract issue, like a political football, like one of the many things we care about. Abortion is an act of injustice being perpetrated against real human beings, real tiny helpless babies. That's why I joined the movement, and that's why I think everybody should consider joining.
Absolutely. And what would you say to somebody maybe who was where you were back then, maybe a young person who's watching this and they think, you know, this is something I feel very passionately about, but I don't know where to start. What would you say to such a person on their college campus or secondary school or whatever it might be?
Well, so first of all, like, I know that it's really scary to bring up an issue like this where there's so many tensions. People can get so angry talking about abortion, but I'll just share with you very briefly the first conversation I ever had about abortion on a campus. I was doing activism, I was doing outreach, and I'd never done it before. I was really, really nervous. And one of the first girls that came up to me, I was standing by a display, and I just said, "What do you think about abortion?" And she kind of stared at me and she said, "Well, I had one 3 weeks ago." And I just froze. I had no idea what to say. And I said, "Well, what do you think of our display then?" I was feeling really terrible. I thought, well, we're going to make her feel really bad. I had no idea what to respond to her. And she just said, "Where were you guys a couple of weeks ago?" And that's when I realized that there are so many people at your high school, on your campus, that will have an abortion or consider an abortion if people like you and I don't just build up the courage to reach out to them and give them information that can actually save a life. I've actually gotten to hold children who were scheduled to be aborted at clinics, but weren't, just because somebody ordinary like me or ordinary like you, decided to build up the courage to reach out to somebody and have that conversation. These conversations can actually save lives, and that should give us all the courage we need to put our best foot forward and to do something that could change the course of the lives of many people in one conversation.
That's such a touching story, and it raises the question, what do you think is the biggest barrier to people coming into the pro-life movement and getting more active in it? What do you think is the biggest obstacle that you've had to overcome since you began all of this work?
Well, I think the biggest obstacle is that I get that for a lot of people, pro-life activism seems kind of scary. And that's why sometimes maybe don't think about it as activism at first. Just think about having a conversation, because a lot of people will look at different forms of pro-life activism, maybe the huge displays or giving a speech on a stage or something like that, and think, "Oh, I don't know if I could ever do that." Well, just think about this for a minute. Where you've been placed in your peer group with the people you see at work, at school, there are people you can reach that nobody else can reach. And so maybe start with that. Make a commitment to yourself that you're going to talk to a few people about abortion that you know might need to hear about abortion and that would take it from you, that would hear it from you. And so the obstacle, I think, is often that we just need to find the courage, and we should just start by having a conversation, because the number one reason people have abortions right around the world, and all the data and statistics back this up, is because nobody took the time to reach out to them, to tell them what abortion actually was, and to assure them that they would be there for them and help them no matter what it took if they made that life-affirming choice.
It's so true. And I suppose on that note, to finish up, I really appreciate your time and taking the time to speak to us today. If you could tell us a little bit about your book, Patriots, and where we can get it, and sort of what was the motivating force behind writing it, and if you just go through the process of this book and how it came about.
Yeah, so the book Patriots is the untold story of the Irish pro-life movement. I actually got the idea to write it because I was in Ireland for a couple of weeks before the referendum, and I was working with all of these amazing pro-lifers. And when I picked up the newspaper as we were going door to door, and I'd read what the newspapers had to say about pro-lifers, I realized that our stories, the stories of the pro-life movement around the world, are only ever told by people who actually hate us. So in the newspaper, you'd read about, all of these people who are defending some, mystical patriarchy that exists primarily in their own imagination, and some dark Ireland's past. But the people that I was going door to door with and on the Vote No Roadshow with, these were people who were skipping university just because they cared about babies. There was people who were taking time off work or had quit their jobs just because they cared about babies. These were people who just recognized that these human lives were so precious, they were worth sacrificing for. And so I really wanted to tell that story, especially because in the wake of the referendum, a lot of people started to ask, so what was this all for? I had probably half a dozen people say that to me, that they struggled with, what was all that pro-life work for? Well, if you look at what the Irish movement accomplished, first, in getting the 8th Amendment in 1983, getting constitutional protections for preborn children, which no other nation in the West ever managed to achieve. And they did so by a political coup that one pro-abortion journalist called one of the great political coups of the 20th century. And then through non-stop, relentless activism, they kept the 8th Amendment in place for 35 years, saving hundreds of thousands of lives. And that's what it was all for. It was for the hundreds of thousands of people who are alive today because pro-lifers put boots on the ground in a country where abortion was already illegal. And so for those who are wondering, what's the pro-life movement all about? Where are the heroes of the pro-life movement? I say, look back at the history of the Irish movement, where hundreds of lives were saved, constitutional protections were maintained for decades longer than anywhere else in the West. And unlike almost any other country, you still had over 30% of the people who came out to vote voting to keep abortion illegal in all circumstances. And I know that having lost the 8th Amendment, it's hard to look on the bright side, but coming from a non-Irish country, 30% of people voting to keep abortion illegal is an absolutely tremendous base to work from. And so I really wanted to answer the question, what was all of it for? And take a look at the history of the movement, because if not only my generation can learn from this, but pro-lifers right around the world can learn from this. So I interviewed Irish pro-lifers who've been in the movement for decades. I interviewed the people I went on the Vote No Roadshow with, and the stories they told me were just really, really incredible. I feel privileged to have been able to talk to all of these people. The Irish movement really is something special, and I can say that as an outsider, and I don't need to feign humility because I can talk about the people that I met and discuss just how phenomenal what they did was. So for anybody who's considering joining the pro-life movement, honestly, the Irish movement is just extraordinary. If you haven't joined the movement yet, you should really consider it. You should get active. Hundreds of thousands of lives were saved, and you have the opportunity to be part of that movement, to save lives yourselves, to be part of this beautiful history and part of this beautiful legacy. And if you want to read that story, you can purchase your own copy of the book at Life Institute, lifeinstitute.net. The book is available there. And I think you'll be just as inspired by the stories as I was when I was writing it.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. Really appreciate your time, and it was really wonderful to talk to you.
So that's it for today, folks. We had our Rally for Life yesterday, and what a great way to finish off the rally weekend with our Unfiltered Youth Conference today. We hope that you feel inspired to go out and be actively pro-life.
Well, it was great talking to everybody today. We're going to go now to Stephen with a song, but thank you so much everybody for watching, and we'll see you next time.
See the sun sit in your eyes, see a thorn twist in your side, and I'll wait for you. Slide a fan and twist her fate on a bed of nails. She makes me wait, and I'll wait without you, without you, without you. I can't live without you. Samina mina waka waka samina mina zangaleva anawa samina mina waka waka samina mina zangaleva. It's time for Africa. Sometimes I feel like I don't have a partner. Sometimes I feel like my only friend is the county I live in, the county of Calvin. Lonely as I am together we cry when I find myself in times of trouble. Mother Mary comes to me, speaking the words of wisdom. Let it be, let it be, let it be, let it be, let it be. Speaking the words of wisdom. Let it be. Country roads take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, mountain mama, take me home. Country road, no woman no cry, no woman no cry. I say oh, little darling, no, don't you know this? No woman no cry. People killing people, dying children, how you see them cry. Would you practice what you preach? Would you turn the other cheek? Father, 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 help us, send some guidance from above. People got me questioning, where is the love? Go along, broad, don't be silent more. Well, I'm more. So rock me, mama, like a wagon wheel. Rock me, mama, any way you feel. Hey, mama, rock me. Rock me, mama, like a wheel around. Oh, rock me, mama, like a southbound train. Hey, mama, rock me. Light up, as you feel. Even if you cannot hear my voice, I'll be right beside you. No one get away with what I'm feeling. No one get away with what I feel for you. This is the way you left me. I'm not pretending. No hope, no love, no glory, no happy ending. This is the way that we love, like it's forever. We'll spend the rest of our lives, but not together. And open up your eyes, see like me, and open up your plans, and damn, you're free. Look into your heart and you'll find love, love, love. Listen to the music and the more people dance and sing. We just want to be family, and it's our God forsaken right to be love, love, love. Oh, hey, soul sister, ain't I miss on the stereo, radio, the way you move ain't fair, you know. Hey, soul sister, I don't want to miss a single thing you do. Tonight, she's all that I'm better with a broken heart. While I'm drinking Jack alone in the local bar.